Hi, this is Stan Houston once again. Programs sometimes on the edge, sometimes we are doing what it takes, and occasionally with a smile and maybe a twinkle in my eye I will say this is kind of showings from Stan. So whatever category works, I think we'll try what it takes. Here we go. What does it take? And I've learned this from deep experience, and I mean oftentimes that's deep study, and oftentimes it's deep pain in the personal experience. What does it take to really start a new thing, a new movement, a new idea? How do you get it going? And particularly since we look at what Jesus was all about as kind of our model for how we live our life and how we do business, he had the same issue. There he was, he didn't have a lot of resources physically, and he went out and he built a world-class organization about 3.5, 4 years, and that world-class organization continues to this very day. So one of the things we're going to talk about is the 3-12-70 principle as a way that Jesus can demonstrate to us how we can build truly a classic world-class company. We'll see where that conversation goes. But in my recent attempt to build the Christian Entrepreneur Network, I've discovered that in effect, you're going to have to find this project path. And it's not an easy one, and so I just share it with you. And the reason I'm doing this is to share it with some good friends, and they can watch it, and then perhaps you can benefit from it too. Here's what I've discovered. First of all, everybody is seeking something. That's right. They're trying to find something. My little dog Jackson is not seeking anything. He's just enjoying life. He has no great aspirations at all. He's just living well. He does what he does, and he gets fed, and he gets taken care of. It's a good life for Jackson. Now, human beings were made in the image of God. We are made for more than that. And because of that, we seek what is good, or we seek something else that may be less good, but we're all seekers. Part of our discovery process is what do we think people are seeking? And from what they are seeking, what can we do that would help them become better at who they are and what they do and the aspirations they have? So people are seeking. But then we're going to have to come up with something so that they will turn from seekers to perhaps listeners. They will stop. They will say, I never thought of that before. Oh, that's an interesting idea. Maybe I'd like that. They will actually take time to stop what they're doing, and whatever presentation, program, sermon, whatever you have, whatever story you're telling, and it'll have to be a story for the most part, they'll listen. And perhaps if it's something like this, they will be listeners and seers. And that can go on for some time. In fact, that's where most people will end. They'll just, okay, that was interesting, and they move on to something else. However, from seekers to listeners, hopefully somebody will say, I believe that. I'm a believer. And that's the hard part. How do you get seekers to become listeners and seers and then to become believers? And I've oftentimes found out that I've had a lot of listeners and I've had a lot of seekers, but oftentimes it's been very difficult to find true believers. They really believe in it. They go along with it, but they're not particularly believing in it. It's okay. Now, believing is not good enough. Believers have to also become actors. And that's very simple. They at least start acting. They do something. They take action. there's something about that. Jesus said, okay, now that you believe, follow me. Okay, and they act. It's still a long ways from what they're meant to be, but we've got some action. So seekers become listeners and seers, and then maybe happily they become believers, and then they become actors. Now, we've still got a ways to go, because they're acting on their own interests, and perhaps just in their own interests. Will they move? Will they not only act, will they move? Will they become followers? Now keep in mind, Jesus' comment was, okay, you've seen me, you believe me, you want to do something? Well, follow me. And so these people become followers and learners and believers and maybe somewhat recruiters. They will say, hey, you, come see, come listen to what I've found. And those people might then become listeners and seers, and they might even become believers, and they even might become actors. But then the followers also seek to become leaders. And the job of the leader is to help those who've now become followers to become leaders in their own right. Not just followers, but friends and leaders themselves. And then hopefully those who become good leaders will become what we are all called to be as human beings. We are all called to be teachers. Powerful, effective, fully alive, persuasive teachers. And because we are a teacher and we are a liver of what we teach, we literally walk and live our talk. People who are seekers might also become listeners and seers. And then they might too become believers. And they take action. And they become followers. And maybe leaders themselves. And then teachers of others. That's how a movement goes and grows. And what I've discovered that it's very, very hard to get seekers to stop long enough to become listeners and seers, and then to find if they will really take the step of being believers in what it's all about. And then actors and followers and leaders, again, difficult steps. 7 things that it takes to have a world-class, powerful movement. And for those of you who feel that you are called to make a change in people's lives and make a change in your world and maybe even the world, maybe this has been a bit helpful. Everybody's seeking something. See if you can discover what it is. And within that realm of where they're at and where you hopefully would like to lead them to, what can you say so they'll become listeners and then perhaps become believers and actors and followers and then leaders themselves and teachers of others? Perhaps you'll just let those 7 ideas sit on your head for a while. Perhaps they'll stir your mind, move your spirit, touch your heart, and you will become much more effective in how you build the things that matter not only into your own life, but into the organization and the group that you are seeking to lead and influence. Just something for your thought and consideration. I'm Stan Houston, wishing you all the best, and if I can help you in any way, stanhouston@gmail.com, stanhouston@gmail.com. Till time for another Edge What It Takes or Stand Shook. We'll see you then.